I'm just
Hello
8
is
hours
not
away by
working.
bus.
Hello is not working. I just need an engineer to engineer me.
I see the African trustees with us.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
Good afternoon, Leonard Sik. Good afternoon, Ms. Azik. And I've greeted everyone else earlier. Good to have you here, sir.
Dr. Chikwendu. How now?
Very well, sir. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Well done.
Which part of the globe are you joining from?
I'm in London. So,
Okay. Good to have you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Were you at the MBA conference that ended last?
No. I didn't attend. I have not been able to attend the past two conferences.
Okay.
But hopefully next year, by His grace.
That should be in Port Harcourt.
Port Harcourt, yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Welcome, sir.
Well done. Thank you. Good to see you. Well done.
Thank you, sir.
So we're waiting for Charles to kick off us, right?
Yes, I thank you everyone for joining. I want to say a special thank you to our panelists, the different panelists from all over the world. Or they're Africans, but they're in different parts of the world. And then I also want to thank the different people who have logged in for this webinar. I want to hand over to Elizabeth Suvi, who is going to be our program director, to take us through. Elizabeth, over to you.
Thank you, Charles. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, which is Africa's ADR Future, Forging Our Paths, Leading the Change. And we are delighted to have you with us, and we truly appreciate everyone who has taken off time to join us in this session. My name is Suvi Elizabeth Nabugo, and I'll be serving as the facilitator for today's webinar. Before we begin, I just wanted to make a few housekeeping notes. Today's session is being recorded and will be shared with all the registered participants. Please keep your microphones off and muted during the sessions, and we encourage you to submit all your questions that you may be having or any other questions that may arise during the sessions in the chat box. And we'll be able to address all the questions during the designated discussion period. For now, I'll call upon Charles to just give us 2 minutes of his time to make a few remarks.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Again, joining Elizabeth, I want to say welcome to everyone to this webinar. This webinar is the very first joint webinar between young member groups, or in some instances, young member committees. And this has been jointly organized by young member groups and young member committees from Uganda, Kenya, Malawi, Zambia, Nigeria and Ghana, and together with the Young African Arbitration Association, which is the Young AFA. So we are very proud of this occasion. It's been something that we've been working towards for a number of months now. And firstly, I want to say a very big thank you to these chairpersons, the chairpersons of these different groups, because they've been very positive towards this, and they are the reason as why we are having this. I also want to say a very big thank you to the different panelists, Dr. Madumere, who is the CIAB Africa trustee, who is going to give our keynote speech. We want to thank you because once we reached out to you, it was a very straight yes from you, and you've worked together with us to make sure that you're also here. The other panelists, Godwin Omoaka, and also Isaac Bizumuremi, thank you very much for joining us and for making this activity or this joint webinar what it is. The aim or the idea behind this joint webinar was for us to have a Pan-African effort towards having a discussion regarding the future of ADR. And of course, we all know that the young member groups in each branch or chapter are key to this. They're key to sustainability for CIAB and even for ADR in general. So we felt it wise that it would be nice for us to continuously have these engagements, these joint, operations or joint activities, such that we can share experiences, share perspectives, and the unique context of Africa, because in many times that is missing in conversations both globally and also on the continent. So this is our very first activity, and maybe it's a first of many. We hope that we will have many more of these. The theme of this webinar is Africa's ADR future, forging our path, leading the change, because we believe that there are many things that together we can, as the young members, as the leaders of the young members, we can do together, such that we can forge a path, such that we can create a space for young members in Africa. And of course, the YMGs and the YMCs have a special place in these different branches. And that is something that we can use to continuously drive, conversations, continuously create a space for networking, for mentorship among the young members and for the young members. So today we will have a webinar, this joint webinar. Our very first joint webinar is going to have a keynote address being given by Dr. Madumere, and we shall also have two panels. Panel 1 will have the leaders roundtable, so it's going to have the different leaders from the YMGs or YMCs, as we refer to them, based on whether it's a branch or a chapter, having a conversation about their path and how they've really found it and what exactly they're doing, the different YMG initiatives in their countries. And that will be moderated by Herman Omiti, who is the chairperson of Young AFA. And then we shall also have panel 2, which will have 2 seasoned practitioners in Godwin Omoaka and Isaac Bizumuremi. We'll also go into a more technical discussion, and we shall be able to learn from them based on their experience, not only in Africa and all over the world. So I want to thank all of those who have been able to join us and all those who are going to continuously join us. And I want to give Dr. Madumere the floor, such that he can give us the keynote address. Over to you, Dr. Madumere, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Charles, for the excellent introduction that you have rendered this afternoon. Now, good afternoon, everyone. Good morning and good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. I am so very happy for this initiative by the chairs of the respective branches of CIAB within Africa, and of course, our Young Alpha, in forging this collaboration and putting together this webinar with a team on Africa's ADR future, forging the change. Now, I'm going to be as brief. I'm going to be as brief as possible. Now, within this team, we have 2 panels. The first panel, as I understand it, will be speaking on building the future YMG initiative and the growth of ADR across Africa. And of course, panel 2, we'll be talking about ethics, whether, the deficit question and how to make Africa a favorable seat within international commercial arbitration. Now, speaking on the first subject about, the leaders roundtable, I'll be talking about building the future. To be able to build the future, it's important for us to understand our past. Somebody said that a man who remembers where he's coming from will never forget where he's going to. And then some other person also said that a person who fails to learn from history will relive that history. So for us as young practitioners and for us as African practitioners, we need to understand where we are coming from. All too often in conferences and in webinars, we talk about non-participation of Africans within the international arbitration arena, or insufficient participation of Africans within the international participation. Now, why is that so? Why is that so? Could it be reasons on account of expertise? Could it be on account of perception? Could it be on account of lack of infrastructure, lack of perhaps relevant legal framework and infrastructural framework? Those are items I think in the course of the panels, the respective chairs will be exploring. But the good takeaway for me is the fact that the YMG, I see an array of YMG, army arising across Africa. And that is very, very heartwarming for me, because I will recall very clearly that upon my election as a trustee for Africa, my first outing was in Kenya, and it was in support of the first CIAP conference, YMCIAP conference in Africa. I also recall that my office was also a co-sponsor of that event. Now, why am I bringing that up? We cannot build a glorious future for Africa within the framework of international arbitration unless we are intentional about supporting our YMG members to grow and allowing them opportunities to also grow. And that then speaks to governance within our chapters in Africa, within our branches in Africa. You know, I keep preaching that message, and I won't be tired of preaching it. Our branches must be intentional in operating in a way that moves away from building empires for a few to establishing legacies for the benefit of all the members of the branches. That is the only way we can grow. Empires, regardless of how strong they are, will rise and fall, but legacies will live forever. Empires are restrictive. Empires do not recognize diversity. Empires do not give equal opportunity to everybody, but legacies are inclusive. Legacies restore or recognize diversity and recognize talents, and then allows talents to flourish. Like I keep saying, if you've had the opportunity of representing any client outside of Africa in international arbitration, most of the young practitioners you see in big law firms, whether it's Allen & Overy or Clifford Chance or so, they are very young people, but very experienced people, very knowledgeable people. But you come to Africa, we don't measure alongside the same trajectory that you see outside, which is why I am so glad when I see what our young members are doing across Africa. You know, I see Charles in Uganda, I see Charles in Malawi, I see Kate in Zambia, I see David in Kenya, I see Lorraine in Zambia, in Ghana, I see Majimite in Nigeria, I see Herman in Kenya, and of course I see Mulaba, you know, in Zambia. And you see that they are very intentional in the way they're positioning themselves, and also they are gaining expertise and also exposing themselves to best practices. There is no shortcut to this business. If you have to be competitive, you must bring expertise to the table. That is the only way to go. So you cannot say that nobody's allowing you space unless there is value you're bringing to the table. So that is why I'm so very happy seeing that we are beginning to, to grow, along the lines of collaborating among ourselves and then sharing expertise. And then it's just a matter of time before you see Africa taking her pride of place within the realm of international arbitration. So I'm so very happy to you, to the respective chairs of all the chapters for putting this together. Even within the board of trustees of the institute, is as a matter of policy, YMG members have a special place. At the last board of trustee meeting, an opportunity was given to YMG members to address the board on the way forward. And of course, you know that it also is part of the strategy that YMG members are members of the ESCO of all the respective, branches across the world. So that is speaking to inclusion. That's speaking to giving exposure to our YMG members. So I'm so very happy, for this, event. And of course, panel 2 talks about, trust deficit, and then how to make Africa an attractive seat to international arbitration. Now, when you talk about trust issues, is it real, or is it imagined, or is it repeating the same rhetorics that we've always had? Well, that is a question that the panelists will answer. But one thing that we cannot deny is that I am not sure we have moved away from where we were several years ago. We've moved away from where we were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, but I'm not sure we've reached where we want to be. And that is why we must continue to engage. We must continue to expose ourselves to best practices. We must continue to, frame frameworks that allows for competition. And I'll give you, a very good example. Look at Singapore. Look at Hong Kong. 20 years ago, I'm not sure any of those countries was anywhere above any major country of Africa. But look at the way they are today. Intentional about opportunities to everyone, intentional about inclusion, intentional about providing frameworks that encourage and promote international arbitration. Today, Singapore is competing with the best centers in the world. Hong Kong is competing. So if we are going to make Africa an attractive seat, we must be intentional in the things we do, both from the public sector, from the private sector, and from practitioners. The future belongs to the young ones, belongs to all of us. So we should be, a lot more involved in the way we engage in this business. And of course, the reality of the matter is that if it takes the average concession, half an effort to succeed, for us from this region, it should take us about 2 of those efforts to succeed. For instance, I read online, Charles, sorry for saying it here, I should have congratulated you privately about the recent LLM that you got. Wonderful. I saw Mulaba last time, I think 2 weeks ago, in his outings in South Africa. Wonderful. I see Herman, I see the great work that he is doing with the young Alpha in Kenya. Wonderful. That is the way to go. You have to be visible. I met Martin, in London in June, for the Africa Arbitration Academy diploma. That is the way to go. You must keep, reinforcing your understanding of this business and putting yourself forward, as somebody that brings value to the table. People may not like your face, but nobody can doubt the value you bring to the table. That is the way it works. And like you said, nobody will appoint you as an arbitrator because you are his friend. They will appoint you because there's a value you're bringing to the table. So as young people, we should be intentional in gaining expertise. Of course, as you know, I have a PhD already, but I'm also running another master's program outside in a different area of study. What am I doing? I'm trying to gain insight. I'm trying to set myself up. So I'm so very happy, for this event. I'm so very happy, for what is happening across Africa. That aligns with my vision. That aligns with the vision of CIAP, and that is the way we must go. So thank you very much for having me this afternoon. And I should at this point yield the floor to, back to you, Charles. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Madumeri. Elizabeth?
Thank you very much, Doctor. And we are very delighted to have had the thoughtful and inspiring opening remarks. And definitely as young members, we'll continue exposing ourselves to the best practices as advised, and also being intentional in gaining the expertise. We are definitely very grateful for your time today. And we'll proceed to the next part of the program, which is the first session. And I'm delighted to introduce to you Herman Omiti, who is the chairperson of the Young African Arbitration Association. Join me in welcoming Herman to the session. Herman, you can proceed with the first session.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Elizabeth. And thank you so much, Dr. Madumeri, for such an insightful speech that you've given to us this afternoon. Definitely, this panel of the YMT chairs picks it up from where you've left, because you have very clearly pointed out that there is an army or an area of army that is coming up across Africa. And I'm happy with that, because as you look across Africa, you see very, very many young people who are coming up as arbitrators in the ADR space generally. And you've also reminded us that for us to participate or to take part in this fully, we have to be very intentional. So this particular panel is a panel of chairs of various YMGs across Africa. We can see from the very many things that we do in our various YMGs that we have initiatives, we have different things that we're doing to ensure that we participate fully in the discussions around ADR, in discussions around arbitration. But beyond the discussions, we want to be part of the dispute resolution practitioners generally. We want to be appointed panels to be able to participate in real time and international arbitrations across. But the question, as you put it, do we have what it takes? What are we doing to ensure that we build our own skills, that we grow the skills and the values that are needed for us to participate fully in this sector? Thank you again for pointing out what the various chairs in this platform are doing in their different YMG, in their different chapters, in their different branches. The question again is, does this cascade down to our members? The YMG is the very initial stage that arbitration practitioners join the fold of arbitration practice. What are we doing as YMG chairs as we lead the vision, as we lead the way? There are things that we are able to do to ensure that we open up the space, that we create platforms that are required to ensure that we bring in more practitioners. But as we do that, we also build the capacity of the young practitioners who have already joined the fold. And that is the discussion that we are having this afternoon with the chairs of the YMGs. So to help us answer these questions, I have with me a panel of different chairs. The first one, I would introduce them very briefly. There are people who, even at the young age, they have already achieved a lot. I may not be able to read their CVs. It may take all the time. So because of that, I will give them very brief introductions. The first one of us is Lorraine. Ms. Lorraine Dakwa from Ghana. Ms. Lorraine is representing the chair of the Ghana chapter. Ghana chapter is growing real fast, and they're in the process of putting together their own YMG. And we believe that with all these initiatives we are putting in place, soon enough we will have a fully fledged YMG in Ghana. So Lorraine is joining this great panel of chairs. The second is David. David Onsare is the chair of the Young Members Group, Kenya branch. Welcome, David. The next chair joining us is Charles Mpone. Charles is the chair of the Young Members Group from Malawi branch. Welcome, Charles. Joining us also is Mr. Majemite. I told him that the first name is one I would not try to pronounce, so I would stick to what I can for purposes of this conversation. And he's the chair of the YMG Nigeria branch. Welcome, Mr. Majemite. Joining us also is Mr. Charles Gava. Again, Mr. Gava, his full name is one I would not go into, so I will refer to him as Mr. Gava for purposes of this conversation. He is the chair of the YMG Uganda chapter. And last but not least, we have Miss Kate Nalondua. I believe I've pronounced it properly. Kate is the chair of YMG Zambia. Kate was recently elected, and we have to congratulate her for that, taking over from our very own Muleba to represent the young members in the Chartered Institute in Zambia. So this is the group of young chairs of young member groups who are going to help us in this conversation. So feel most welcome. This is a session that will take a short time. We're just going to have a general conversation about what we are doing as the chairs of the Young Members Group in our different branches and chapters. And so to start as we are off, I'll just ask each of the panelists to give us an overview of or an outline of the strategies or the visions that you have put in place in your various YMGs, to ensure that as you lead the YMGs, we are going towards a certain direction. So perhaps just the question that I would like to ask us to address generally is, what are the strategies? What is the vision that your YMG has put in place to ensure that we contribute to the growth of ADR in your particular jurisdiction? I would want to start this conversation again with Lorraine. Welcome, Lorraine.
Thank you so much, Herman. And thank you to all of you for putting this together. It's been a great journey, and I know that this webinar would be the stepping stone to many great things. As was mentioned by Herman, the Ghana chapter of CIAB is still forming its YMG, but we have a very young membership. And this is largely due to the fact that there are a lot of young lawyers and young arbitration practitioners in Ghana. And we have a page where we communicate with our members. There are more than 700 members currently. And there are quite a number of initiatives that we've undertaken to ensure that our members are on the right path to being visible, as Dr. Madumari said. One of them is the featured member series. Every week we feature one member of our group, and we've realized that a lot of young practitioners have gotten opportunities to speak, opportunities to probably be mentored in other organizations through that opportunity. Talking about mentorship, we also run a mentorship program, and we ran it the last 2 years, and we had senior practitioners who took about 3 months of their time to mentor the young members, and some of them met in person and some of them were truly virtual. And then we also ensure that we put up our training programs, because it's important that we have the requisite training, and so that when we are called upon to actually do what we say we like doing, we have the capacity to do so. That's with the membership and the associate training. And I'm happy to mention that it's really going well in Ghana. Each time the call is made, a lot of people sign up and join in. And so these are some of the initiatives we have in Ghana. I believe as the conversation goes along, I'll mention some more. Over to you, Herman.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lorraine. Featured member series, mentorship programs, trainings that are continuing to mention, but a few of those strategies put in place. Definitely. Just to bring in David, and I have to say that David Onsari came in this year as the new chair of YMG Kenya, and I know that he's already putting in place quite a lot. And so it would be good that we hear from him on the strategies that the YMG Kenya is putting in place to ensure that the members are able to contribute effectively to the ADR arbitration generally. Welcome, David.
Thank you very much, Herman. In Kenya, we say asante sana. Now, I can summarize our vision. The vision does not belong to me. The vision belongs to the committee in service of the membership. I can summarize it into 3 words. That is potential to practice, okay? Our vision as YMG Kenya is to create a culture of ownership where we actively build this generation we are handling. This generation, next generation we are handling of leaders, not just members. It's not enough, in our opinion, to be qualified, okay? Our focus is on creating clear and tangible pathways. The infrastructure is very, very important. It's one thing to take up the training, get the qualification, but how do we transition you from a qualified arbitrator to one that practices as one. The next facet of my response would be on the main contributions. Okay. I mentioned the infrastructure. Now, working from the previous YMG steering committee, we are trying to create platforms where these members have real world influence. Now, how do we get this influence? I can mention two from the top of my head here. There is one we have coming out soon, if not this month, a publication we call the ADR Compass. In Kenya, we have a journal which is peer-reviewed by the institute, but we notice there's a gap here, a gap for Haman, can you hear me?
Yeah, I think you had the network fluctuation for a few seconds. Yes.
Sorry.
Yes, you talked about the job.
Yes, I was talking about the infrastructure here. We have the ADR Compass. Good. Now, as an institute, as a branch, we have a journal, an ADR journal, which is peer-reviewed, okay, where we have academic papers addressing issues, providing solutions, giving us a reason to think about the challenges we are facing. But we notice there's a gap with now what we are trying to fulfill with the ADR Compass, where we're giving our members a platform to write very short 800-word articles, easy to read, easy to consume. You can even access it on your phone and just read through, giving our members again an opportunity, a platform, a launchpad to writing, not thought leadership. That in turn will help them transition to participating more actively with the ADR journal. Number two, we have a legal reform initiative as a committee, where as recent as a month or two ago, we had the Arbitration Amendment Act, a couple of acts which were proposed for amendment, and we were receiving feedback. Just to give our membership an opportunity in policy making, we collect information as YMG, okay, process it for our members and share it with the institute, with the branch, as this is the feedback we're receiving from our members. It is not just enough to collect feedback from the wider membership, but it's important also for the young practitioners to feel like they have their own way of communicating what they feel about the proposed amendments to law. Just to mention a few, those two should work for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, David. Putting in place infrastructure to ensure that the potential to practice is realized. And you're saying that we need to be able to transition practitioners from being qualified practitioners to actually practice arbitration and ADR. And you also talked about opportunity or platform for publications. And of course, you talked about legal reform initiatives to ensure that the young members participate in policy making, which is very, very, very important. Thank you. Thank you for that, David. Now that brings in Charles from Malawi. Charles, please just give us some of the strategies that you put in place in Malawi to ensure that the young members can significantly contribute to the growth of ADR in Malawi. Welcome, Charles.
Thank you very much, Herman. And maybe just a point of clarification. In Malawi, we do not have a branch yet, a CI branch yet, but we're on course in setting up the Malawi chapter. So my position in Malawi is basically a YMG ambassador for Malawi. So I was appointed in this position sometime in 2023. So when I was appointed as the YMG ambassador, I anchored my strategic vision on one of my core mandates, basically to promote and entrench the practice of ADR in my jurisdiction. So in Malawi, litigation has traditionally been seen as the default pathway for resolving disputes, while ADR has remained relatively underutilized. My vision then has been to shift this mindset by raising awareness and building capacity among the next generation of practitioners. So to achieve this, I've organized some workshops at the University of Malawi and the Catholic University of Malawi. The central theme has been clear. A modern practitioner must be well versed in all forms of dispute resolution, with EDR being an essential component. These engagements have already borne fruits. Most notably, the University of Malawi has revised its curriculum to introduce EDR as a substantive course. For me, this development represents the single most significant contribution to the growth of EDR in Malawi. And of course, it also ensures that future practitioners will graduate with not only a grounding in litigation, but also an appreciation of EDR's role in developing efficient, business-friendly dispute resolution. And this is particularly timely as Malawi has recently established its first arbitration institution, the Malawi International Arbitration Center, where I also serve as the CEO and the registrar. The long-term success of this center will also depend on precisely this kind of knowledge capacity amongst its users. So far, that's what I would say in terms of my strategic vision. Thank you very much, Herman.
Thank you very much, Charles. It's good you brought that up because I actually forgot to say that Charles is the registrar, the CEO of the Malawi International Arbitration Center. That is a big thing. I mean, it means that the young practitioners are taking the very important places and positions that is helping to ensure that we are part of the conversation. We're not just sitting on the periphery. So that's great. Thank you so much, Charles. Obviously, telling us the issue of the workshops and the fact that these discussions have led to the introduction of arbitration and ADR as a course at the university to ensure that those who graduate out of the university come with this knowledge of arbitration already, makes it easy for them to then join the arbitration space. Thank you. That then brings us to Mr. Majemite. Tell us what Nigeria is doing. I know Nigeria is a powerhouse and your membership is quite huge. So it definitely takes a lot to ensure that you bring them up and ensure that they are well trained and everybody participates in this process. Just give us a few strategies that you have in place to ensure that these young members are able to contribute meaningfully to the ADR in Nigeria.
Thank you so much, Herman. And it's been very interesting to hear from my colleagues. I would probably say I'm, unlike those who have spoken, I'm actually the outgoing YMG chair. So I've had this role for about 3 years now. So kudos to, the YMG chairs and reps, coming in and all the bright ideas that they have. In Nigeria, what we've done so far, I'll just highlight 3 major things. The first one is that we've been very deliberate, and I pushed for this, is that every arbitration where the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators is the appointing or administering institution, the arbitral secretary must be a YMG member. That's something that is actively implemented and enforced, if you will, in Nigeria. So that way, YMG members, once you've done your arbitral secretaryship training, you are somewhat guaranteed at least a foot in the door, that once those opportunities come, you have first-hand experience, at least as an arbitral secretary. That's something that is clearly done in Nigeria. Just like Charles, in Malawi, we have an annual mock arbitration. This time is to the Nigerian Law School, not to the university, where we do a simulation of either a preliminary meeting or an arbitration evidential hearing, but we present it to the students just to get their interest, at that early stage. And these are law school students who already have their law degrees, but just want to qualify as lawyers. So we're able to, get them quite young. Another thing that we do again, like Lorraine, is mentorship. And just to mention that the Ghana chapter, I'm sure, you know, with all the excellent work that they are doing, would soon become a branch in themselves, but they are under the Nigeria branch right now. Mentorship is something that we are also very keen about, where we match budding arbitrators with the more experienced ones, so that those experienced ones can bring them in as pupil arbitrators for them to see the arbitration proceedings, you know, live, or the mediation proceedings as well live. And then just finally, during our YMG conference, so we have our annual YMG conference, which acts as a sort of precursor to the main CIAB Nigeria conference. In the entirety of my term as chairman of YMG, and interestingly, Lorraine has even sat as one of our panelists, I have been very deliberate to ensure that only young members sit as speakers at those conferences. And just to tie to what our keynote speaker, Dr. Madumere, said, I think they were excellent points. We must showcase the expertise that we as young arbitrators have, but you must have that expertise in the first place, right? So it's like a twin balancing act. So we've always put a lot of thought to ensure that those who are thought leaders, who are very experienced in the different subject matters, are the ones who are given the opportunity to showcase their skill. And I am happy to say that a few people have actually reached out to me to say that they got very interesting contacts because they had spoken on that topic, and that they've actually gotten arbitration and mediation references from those speaking opportunities. So just that's sort of the things that we've been able to do. Like I said, I'm the outgoing chairman, and very soon I'll be handing over to my successor. But this is a fantastic initiative, obviously, and we are all very happy to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Mejibete. You've outlined the strategies, and this has worked over the 3 years that you've been chair of YMG Nigeria. As you complete your term, definitely the new team that will take over from you will find a fully functioning YMG, and that's a legacy that you're definitely leaving behind. You mentioned the number of initiatives you put in place. Obviously, mentorship is at the center of it, and definitely the fact that the Ghana chapter has benefited a lot from the Nigerian branch, and particularly your leadership, is something that is really we recognize. The issue of annual mock arbitration is also very important, particularly that you do it at the law school and sometimes at the universities, is also a good initiative that ensures that we introduce the students to arbitration and ADR at that young age as they grow into practitioners. Allow me at this juncture to bring on board Mr. Gava. Gava is the chair of Uganda branch. Uganda has also grown under the wings of the Kenyan branch, chapter. I need to say Uganda chapter, and we hope that soon enough the Uganda chapter will become a fully fledged branch, and we're happy with the good work that Gava is doing. So please, just on the same note, just a few strategies so far. I know it's not been a long time, but for the short while, what you've been able to do to ensure that the members are able to contribute meaningfully to the growth of ADR in Uganda.
Yeah, thank you very much, Herman. Actually, around this time last year is when our Young Members Committee was actually started. So we are celebrating our 1-year birthday, I think around today. I think if I check my appointment letter, it's about today, and around the 5th of September last year. So we've just been a young members committee for 1 year. And of course, when we were given the instruments, the chairman and the steering committee of the chapter gave us a mandate as a committee to create a place or a platform for young members and also for their growth in ADR in Uganda. And that has been one of the things that we've been trying to do. And of course, that means that we had a blank page, and we had to do a bit of writing on it and how we've been able to go through that. Of course, some of the things we've been able to do have been webinars. So the webinars allow us to create some form of knowledge sharing or knowledge gathering amongst the young members. So for example, this year we've already had about 2 or 3, even last year, shortly after we had come in, I think we had about 1 or 2. And those allow us to kind of share knowledge or different perspectives to young members, which is good for their growth. One of the ways we've tried to do is to have advocacy for young members. For instance, for us to be more involved in chapter activities. If that's, for example, we are organizing an international conference. The Uganda chapter is organizing an international conference, the CIAB conference, from the 13th to the 14th. And one of the things we really tried to have a conversation with the chairman and with the steering committee, and to which they agreed, was for us to have a special panel or a special day where we can showcase what the young members have been doing. So we are very grateful that, we've been able to have that good working relationship with the steering committee, and they've been able to let us have that space. We are organizing an essay writing competition as per now, and the last submissions are expected on the 30th of September. And we've had quite some interest from young members, both young professionals and those that are still at the university, and even those that are still at the university, not only from law students, but also from students from the built environment, for example, which has shown us, that there's a lot of space for us, and there are quite a number of things that we can do. Of course, we created a common fora, as is the case nowadays, which is WhatsApp, like Lorraine, and we are trying to make sure that we have an inventory of the young members that we have, because when it comes to things like these speaking engagements, sometimes we would want not to see the same common faces, not to see the chair at all speaking engagements, but to have a number of young members really engaged. And it has been a deliberate effort. And even when we are having committee meetings, it's always deliberate for them to say, no, chair, we don't want to see you on that poster. So for most of the engagements from the Ugandan chapter, you won't see the chair, but you will see a number of young members, both committee members and other young members, trying to be on most of those activities. We're also trying to form university associations. So that is, we've tried to have a number of engagements with the universities. For example, Makerere University, we recently, about 2 weeks ago, were at the Kampala International University having a talk with the law students to try and build those bridges with academia, with most especially with the law students, or even students at the universities, because we feel that it is important in terms of us building a membership. Remember, our membership goes up to 39 years, and students are key components of that. So we find it important for us to hold continuous engagements at the universities. And I'm sure when you check most of our activities, we've had quite a number of activities with the universities. We want to move forward in terms of establishing university associations. I think copying from the Kenya branch, they have a number of university chapters. In our case, because we are a Uganda chapter, we can't really call them university chapters, so we have to call them university associations. But they will serve the same role, such that we are able to build from that, and such that we're able to have greater participation from even the students. We are trying to do a bit of mentorship. I won't say we've had a lot of success as my other colleagues, and probably from this webinar, I've been trying to learn how they've been able to do it, most especially Majimite, given the fact that they have a big branch, big membership. And of course, this is why we also have some of these things, such that we're able to share such perspectives, such that I'm able to learn too. And maybe as and when we try to execute that kind of thing, then we'll be able to learn and maybe try and copy. and also emulate for the Ugandan context. So those are some of the activities that we've been doing in the past 1 year. We feel we should be doing a lot more, but we are trying. We are trying in our capacity to make sure that as a committee, we try to make sure that the young members try to get a foot in the door and try to get a lot of knowledge, try to get a lot of experience, and also try to build the membership itself. Yeah, over to you, Herman.
Great, thank you, Charles. That is very, very encouraging. Happy anniversary to YMG Uganda chapter. Definitely a year is not a short time, so you have managed to steer the ship for 1 year. We wish you all the very best as you proceed, of course, with the very good strategies that you highlighted. You have talked to us about the issue of social media and ensuring that the members are able to participate fully, and you're able to feature members for purposes of publicity so that they are seen. That is important. Of course, again, one very important aspect of it is the university associations. As we've said, that is the source. That is where we get our membership from. So we need to take the discussion from where we are back to the universities and those who are coming in at the entry level. Allow me at this point then to bring on board Kate from Zambia. As I said earlier, Kate is just picking the mantle right now, but I know that the YMG in Zambia is very strong, and definitely Kate is coming in with a very good and big vision that will drive the YMG to the next level. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you very much, Herman, and thank you for your kind words as well. Maybe just to add to what you were saying, I am also the immediate vice chairperson of YMG in Zambia. So at least that will give people assurance and comfort as I give my sentiments, having newly been elected into this role. Okay, so there's something that stood out for me when Dr. Madumere was speaking, and he did touch on the aspect of perception and our past in Africa. And why it stood out for me was because I think that these are two elements that perhaps Zambia has recognized have an impact on the growth of ADR in our country. And it was interesting to note that this is a challenge that is faced by other countries as well. As you may know, Africa and Zambia alike have a history of dispute resolution that is very adversarial. And, way back before even litigation, disputes were resolved by swords and spears. So coming from that background, I certainly think that it has a very big influence on our approach towards ADR, which is probably perceived to be a more calm and collected approach towards dispute resolution, which may not be preferred among Africans, if I may say so. And so to combat that, I think in Zambia, we have a twofold approach, which is firstly to promote ADR education and ADR in itself. And so in Zambia, we do, obviously we have a full-blown branch, and we facilitate trainings and the education of various ADR courses. And we also secure a lot of training through webinars, and also we do host the annual Lusaka Arbitration Conference. So we do a lot in promoting ADR in the country in order to kill the perception that disputes have to always be resolved in the manner that we're used to. Secondly, we also are very passionate about mentorship, and this is achieved through the branch. And so the branch does have a mentorship system where each principal appointment of an arbitrator is supported by a mentor. And so there's always a mentor, or a mentee rather, that is assigned to an arbitrator whenever they are appointed. Other than that, and also to promote mentorship, we do have a lot of outreach in the universities, which is done regularly. And this is so that we create right from when someone is still in university, we do plant the seed of ADR in them, such that by the time they conclude their studies, they already have an idea what ADR is about, and hopefully we also capture them as new entrants into this type of dispute resolution. So yeah, that is essentially the strategy that Zambia employs to assist with the growth of ADR in the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kate. The African trustee told us that we need to know our history so that we know where we are going. And I think, as you have mentioned, resolving disputes by swords and spears is very scary. And so understanding that background to know that this is now what we need to do to move away from that is definitely very important. You have told us the very many strategies put in place and the achievements so far through those strategies, the webinars, the trainings, and the annual ADR conference. You summarized it by saying that you promote education, ADR education, and ADR practice. And I think that is very insightful, and obviously, as it has come out clearly, that we are all not just looking forward, but also looking backwards at the universities to ensure that we pick it from the source itself. So thank you for that. We have looked at the vision, we've looked at strategies, and we have looked at how we've done that to ensure that we are where we are. But I think even with that, and again, we are here with our Africa trustee, and we are here with our seniors who are listening to you. I would want to just ask you very briefly to give an overview of, what are the challenges that you face as you try to, implement these strategies, to implement your vision, and also to just give us generally what you think are the challenges that a young practitioner is facing generally, so that we understand, and the young practitioners listening here would know what kind of challenges do you have as their leaders, and what can be done to ensure that we have a smoother process in implementing your visions and your strategies. Over to you, Lorraine.
Hi, Herman. I'm really learning a lot from what chairs are sharing. And I'm sure when Ghana becomes a full branch and we have our own YMG, we implement a good number of the things that have been mentioned here. So one of the challenges I believe that we face, and I don't think it's peculiar to Ghana, is with regards to mentorship. So when mentorship programs are organized, there are times when our mentors may not be so available. And at other times, the mentees who might have signed up might not be so eager or might not have enough time to join in the mentorship programs. And this takes us back. So I think one way of resolving this is to ensure that as someone who puts himself or herself out for mentorship, you should be available for all the sessions with your mentor. Make them know that you are interested in what they are doing, the time that they are giving. Ask them questions, make use of the time, and use the opportunity to become visible. The other challenge I think I'll mention, so I'll leave the rest to the others, is with visibility. So I believe one of us mentioned the fact that sometimes you do the training, and after the training, you do not know what to do. And I believe that that is becoming a reality now for a lot of young practitioners, because they've taken on the membership or associate training, but they haven't sat in an arbitration before. They have no idea what a session looks like, or even a mediation. No idea whatsoever. So I think that's also another challenge. And if more opportunities can be made, I've heard a lot of suggestions here regarding especially the Nigerian initiative, where, I mean, if you take the arbitral secretary course, you should be able to sit as a tribunal secretary in a session, which is really good. I believe that this is something that if we implement across board, and we have our trustee here, so if it's put in as something that is implemented across board, I believe that there'll be a lot more young practitioners who would not just be excited about arbitration, but they will have practical knowledge of what goes into the process.
Thank you, Lorraine. Very well put. I mean, it's very clear when it comes to the issue of visibility and the issue of training. The question is, yes, I am trained, but now what do I do with this training? As Kate talked about, ADR education and ADR practice, so that beyond education we get into practice, and what do we do once we move from education? How do we achieve that? And I remember David talked about transitioning from training to practice. Clearly a very serious challenge that is affecting the young practitioners. The issue of mentors, and I think the question is, do we say it's a scarcity of mentors? Or do we say that it's mentorship programs that are not properly in place? It's a discussion that we need to have to understand where is the problem, because when it comes to mentorship, it should be something that all of us are open to, and we are able to cross-mentor so that we get mentored by the seniors, but we are also open and ready to mentor the younger ones who are coming behind us. What exactly is the challenge? So let me bring in David, perhaps as you bring on board the challenges, you could also just pick up on these big questions that I'm asking.
There is no scarcity of mentors. As I mentioned when I started, talent is not a problem in Africa. Cannot be a problem in Africa. Okay? I think the problem usually is the lack of goodwill. We have to have very honest conversations here. The trustees here, and I will sing the same song throughout my presentation today. We took over office early this year, and the first thing we did was to conduct a survey. The survey was distributed throughout our membership, just to understand the people we are serving. What do you expect of us? You just don't come in and impose your ideas on people. You serve at the behest of their interests. That is what we did. Out of that survey, our biggest challenge, or rather the biggest challenge our membership was facing, again, as I mentioned, is not a lack of talent, but the persistent gap. There's a very big gap here between a member's qualification and their first real opportunity. Okay? Now, how do you move? You've completed your training up to fellow level. How do you move now to start actively practicing as an arbitrator? So ours became an intentional approach towards dismantling structural barriers. These barriers, in my opinion, are man-made. Just red tape that if you can look beyond them and create opportunities for the young men. Okay? Some would say we are paying such large amounts of money every year, but there is no ROI, no return on investment. How do we move on from there? So picking up from that mandate from our membership, we decided that we are going to start this conversation with the main branch, considering that, of course, the YMG chair sits on the board and also have the privilege of handling the biggest committee within the institute, that's the education membership committee. So getting trained and getting certified is only half the journey. As far as I'm concerned, it only puts you at the racing track at the beginning. Okay, the real hurdle here is securing that first appointment. We have tried. Okay, we noticed that yes, parties might say that you don't have the portfolio. So how do we build this portfolio? That is where the ADR Compass came in. That is where we are really trying to convince our members, guys, let's just keep on writing thought leadership, communicate your ideas. You as young practitioners have a fresh perspective. There's nothing like wrong in law. That's what I was taught when I started practicing. Everyone has their own opinion, and doesn't mean that your opinion is right and the next person's opinion is wrong. So while initiatives like the ADR Compass help members to build a portfolio, we also have another initiative we call our YMG Connect. We do it periodically. After 3 months, we do one. We have one scheduled for 5th of December. The YMG Connect brings together the young practitioner and senior members of practice. It's very informal. Remember, we're trying to create an environment where we can have these conversations. There's something probably I can learn from the African trustee over a cup of tea and not necessarily in a conference. Okay, so that is where we have the fireside chat. We have senior members come. We have a topic where we discuss, then invite our members to ask questions. It's an opportunity for our members to interact directly and see what else can we learn from our seniors. So while these two initiatives, the ADR Compass and the YMG Connect sessions, provide invaluable insights, there's still a systematic challenge in convincing appointing authorities to take a chance on a new practitioner. I like what Nigeria said about the arbitral secretary. Now, how do we create more opportunities? Because in Kenya, I know we had a very serious conversation about appointments. I'm glad that there's structure now, there's clarity about how appointments are being made. You know, there's a class of matters that are strictly reserved for a certain level of membership. And when you get to fellow, it's a different class. And when you get to charter arbitration, it's a different class. It gives us clarity where we are following a particular schedule insofar as appointment is concerned. So our role is clear. How do we deal with this challenge? Our role is to continue creating these visibility platforms and advocating for the talent within our ranks. Okay, we're trying to create our own initiatives. We also have our own YMG conference, which is coming up on the 21st of November. I invite you all to come. We are taking the same approach here, where all our speakers, including Mr. Herman Omiti here, who is our member, all our speakers in the conference will be members of YMG. Okay, we are not, I'll use very strong words here, we are not interested in fighting for a place at the table. We are creating a new table and we are fixing ourselves at the head of that table. Thank you very much,
Thank you. Thank you so much, David. Creating a new table. If the table is full, you create yours, bring seats and sit on it, and then you can make decisions. That is very interesting. Thank you so much for that. The survey is in another interesting bit that I think is important that we all learn as chairs, that for you to serve people, you must understand their needs. And so to ask them, what exactly are your needs? What are your priorities? So that you understand where the problems are. That is when you can fix them. And of course, you talked about the gaps, and you've talked about coming up with new strategies to deal with the gaps. One of them is the appointment gaps and classifying disputes and saying these ones can only go to a certain group of dispute resolvers. That is good. And you've talked about dismantling the structural barriers. As young practitioners, we have to do that. For us to be able to compete, we have to dismantle barriers and ensure that where we can fix new barriers, we fix them. But I think when we dismantle barriers, we throw them away so that those who are coming behind us are able to now have it much easier than perhaps that they don't also have to fight barriers when they come. Thank you so much for that. Allow me to bring in Charles at this point to give us the perspective from Malawi.
Thank you very much, Herman. And let me also echo what has already been said by Lorraine as well as David. But just to also add that one of the challenges has been resources. You know that training and mentorship initiatives will require sustained funding and institutional support. Whilst we have enthusiasm among young practitioners, turning that enthusiasm into structured programs that are accessible and affordable remains a hurdle. But nonetheless, with continued collaboration with institutions across the continent, like the collaboration that has brought about the present webinar, you can see that there's a growing ecosystem that, with proper support, will enable these initiatives to thrive. So it's just to add to what has already been said by my colleagues. Thank you very much, Herman.
Thank you so much, Charles. Definitely. Resources is a big factor, as you've said, for us to have these successful training programs, for us to hold conferences that we're talking about. They definitely need resources to be able to plan and execute. And so where resources are scarce, we have to then sometimes shelve certain ideas or postpone certain ideas, and that becomes a challenge. So we need to work around getting resources. And again, as we said, this is where going back to our mother bodies, going back to our seniors to support becomes very important. Allow me at this point to bring on board Mr. Najimete to give us the Nigerian perspective.
Thank you very much, Herman. I think that many of the challenges that we experience at YMG level probably cuts across the entirety of Africa, because I hear the challenges from Charles being faced in Malawi, Lorraine in Ghana, David in Kenya, and I have the same thoughts. Resources definitely is a huge impediment for us here, because if you are saying go and do this very in-depth training to deepen your expertise, is not going to be cheap, and resources will be expended. Another thing would then also be, and I guess it's visibility, but it's also tied to, in a manner of speaking, the issue of trust. So, and I say this because in the course of organizing the YMG conferences, right, that I'd already mentioned, I always insist are manned by YMG members. I find that when a particular name is proposed by either the steering committee or, any other person, the first question is, oh, I don't know this person, I don't know this lady, I don't know this chap. Are we sure the person will do a good job? Which is a fair concern to have, right? But then it's almost like a catch-22 system where if you don't have the opportunity, no one knows your capacity. And then if no one knows your capacity, no one wants to give you the opportunity. So we've had to, sort of take the risk to say, you know what, if this person has written this article or at least has the qualification, let's give the person the opportunity. And thankfully, we've not gotten it wrong. We find that when we give those first timers the opportunity to speak at that podium, they do excellently well, right? So perhaps my charge would then be to my fellow chairs to say that sometimes also give your members that opportunity, trust them, that in as much as you may not have experienced them perhaps in a full arbitration or mediation or read their article, but the fact that they have the qualification, they should be able to do a good job. But then all the other comments, like I already mentioned, even the mentorship as well, they are all concerns that we also have in Nigeria. We'll continue to try to manage. Thank you.
Thank you so much, it's true that the challenges are actually cross-cutting, as you can see. All the chairs are agreeing that these are challenges that affect us across Africa. Now, you've talked about visibility and trust, which is very important. The fact that we need to give our members opportunities to speak, opportunities to write, opportunities to be part of the initiatives that we have, talking about cascading these opportunities from us as chairs or as steering committees to the membership, so that they also feel part of it, and that would be an opportunity for them to grow. That is key. David spoke about the writing and having members being able to participate in writing and publication, and also participating in policy. So that's definitely key. So as it appears, there are certain challenges that are beyond us as the chairs, but there are also certain challenges whose we have the resolution to those problems, we can deal with them by simply opening up the space for our membership. Thank you so much for that contribution. Allow me at this point to bring on board Gava to give us the Uganda perspective.
Yes, Herman. They say Africa is a village or is one country because, you know, we continue to face the same challenges. I think the major issue that we have in Uganda is a resource issue amongst my membership. Resource issue is twofold, as I think we've already seen. So there can be, of course, the trainings, access to the trainings, because we say in order for us to build a critical mass of people, then we have to make sure they have the knowledge. So if you say that a training is about, for example, the associate level training is about $650. So that cost is a bit prohibitive for most of the people, say university students or even early career professionals, which is a demographic really for young members. So I don't know if Dr. Madumere, under his great office, can be able to address some of these and maybe create a special provision for young members such that we can build a bigger critical mass of people through ease of, attending most of these trainings. The other challenge we have, and it concerns maybe one of the activities, is that of networking. If you look at majority of these conferences, they require young members to pay, and still the sums are not small sums of money. Probably people like Herman are, lucky that they have some Kenya shillings in their pockets and they are able to, attend a number of these conferences. But it's a bit challenging for most of my membership, and that's why we're not seeing a lot of, maybe say, Ugandans traveling for some of these conferences or even attending these that are held here in Uganda, because sometimes the costs are a bit high. So that's one challenge. And of course, we have some of these programs. For example, this joint webinar, I would have loved for it to be a physical, webinar. I mean, a physical conference. It would make much better sense for us. But the best alternative for us is to do it online, which allows us to save so many resources, because we do not have that many resources to have some of these endeavors. So I would say resources for me is one of the biggest issues. Of course, the other issues that Majimite mentioned, that Charles mentioned, that David mentioned, that Lorraine mentioned regarding visibility, regarding mentorship, those are also still very big concerns here in Uganda. Because of course everyone asks you, when will I get my first appointment? How can I get mentorship? And maybe because our membership is still growing, and so that problem becomes much more acute for us here. So that's the unique context for Uganda. But otherwise, I share the same thoughts with the rest of everyone. Yeah.
Thank you, Gava. Scarcity of resources still comes up as a very big challenge. I can confirm and assure you that I face the same challenges. So myself and my members are in the same camp. So don't worry, we are looking for solutions, all of us together. Allow me to bring in Kate to give us the Zambian challenges. Maybe for them, it might be a little different. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you very much once again, Herman. I do share, my colleagues' sentiments around the challenges that are faced in Zambia. But there is, again, something that stood out for me when Dr. Madumere was speaking, and he did talk about being seen and visibility. And whilst these are matters that people have already addressed, I think that what Dr. Madumere was trying to hone in on was the issue of pursuit, or the lack thereof, by younger arbitrators. And, there's an African proverb that says, the young may walk faster, but the elders know the road, right? And so much as there's all of this discussion around mentorship, there's all of this discussion around visibility, as well as being seen, I think that there is a challenge among young people or young arbitrators to pursue this career for themselves. I liken the journey of arbitration to any other career that a person may embark on. And once we obtain our primary education in these various fields of study, we take it upon ourselves to pursue the success of that career. But it seems as though with ADR, there is this perception that the success must come far easier than all of these other careers that we pursue. And I think that is a very big challenge. There has to be a personal desire on each arbitrator, young and old alike. If you're new to this, you really have to want it for yourself. And so you have to go out there and get it. You cannot wait for people that have gone ahead of us to do it for you and more or less place the blame on our forerunners for failing to impart the knowledge. Sometimes you just have to go and get it yourself. So for me, I think that is a unique challenge that I'd like to admit and put forward that Zambia is facing, and perhaps other countries as well. There is need for people to pursue their own path for themselves with as much vigor as they desire the success. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, the need for us to pursue this path just as much as we need the success. Very, very, very decisive. I mean, you've spoken about the need for us to do it ourselves so that we don't wait for anyone to do it. And I think that is the idea across the board. We talked about, dismantling barriers, creating new opportunities, bringing tables and chairs for ourselves to be able to participate in the discussions and all that. And I think we have to do them. Our time is fast spent. I think as a parting shot from us so that we can also have one or two questions from the audience. And before questions from the audience, I definitely will give our Africa trustee a minute or so because he's listened to us pointing the arrows at him. He definitely will need to say something on this as a rejoinder. And he would have solutions for us on one or two issues. So on the very last discussion that I want us to have, and something that is really close to my heart, is having this big Pan-African idea. As we've all said, Africa is a village, and all our challenges are the same. It means that the opportunities that can present themselves to us are also similar. So the question is, and some of these ideas that we've had and we're trying to implement across Africa, how do we move beyond each of us doing our own things in our own small corners to becoming this big Africa? The truth is that if you talk to people from the other continents, they believe that Africa is a country, a good number of them, and they look at you and say you're from Africa, and so Africa is one. We then don't need to, when we come to Africa, and divide ourselves and say, I come from east or west or south or this country. What can we do as YMGs? And obviously, something that, as we discuss them, perhaps our mother bodies are already doing them. If they are not, these are things that we need to implement. What is it that we can do? What are the concrete steps that we can take as the leaders in our respective YMGs together to ensure that as we take the next step, we can have a more unified Pan-African community to ensure that our young practitioners coming up don't just say, a practitioner in Kenya or a practitioner in Ghana, but we can come together. This webinar obviously is one initiative, but there must be many more that we can implement. So in a minute or so for each of us just to tell us, what do you think are these steps that we can take to ensure that we have a unified Pan-African community of dispute resolvers at our level? Welcome, Lorraine.
Hi, Herman. So I think David and Kate captured it very well. And we need to bring our own table and sit at the head of our own tables. And I'll just like to give an example. So there are different people making themselves visible in different ways. And I realized I was able to attend a number of conferences. And as has been mentioned, the capital, the amount of money you have to raise and save to attend a conference is not a joke. So I realized that going for some of these conferences, I meet some amazing people. I've met almost all the panelists here. And I said, why not interview them and put it together in a series so that if anybody would like to find out more about these people who might not be able to travel all the way, they can just sit in the comfort of their rooms, watch them, and it will be as if they're interacting with them. And I came up with the arbitration pitch. And now, anytime I'm able to attend a conference, I interview a few of our colleagues and I put it up on YouTube. And I think that that is what we should be doing as the YMG. Enough of the crying foul, enough of the saying that our mentors are not available. What can you do? What initiative can we bring on board? And when we do that, we should keep in mind the fact that we are trying to build each other up. So your initiative shouldn't be one that is selfish or inward looking, but it should be one that involves persons in other jurisdictions. So for instance, our YMG conferences should always have persons from other jurisdictions as speakers. We can't have all, say, Nigerians if it's Nigeria, and the like. So these are some of the things that we should do so that we keep being visible. I just like to end by saying that even the way this webinar was publicized was amazing, because people from Uganda will get to see probably Herman being tagged, and then they'll go and follow him, connect with him, and the like. And then you realize that even the people who are panelists here are becoming visible. Those commenting on the post are also becoming visible. And we are all gradually ensuring that we all make it onto the international stage that we are all looking at getting to. So I believe that we are moving in the right direction, and we should just keep at it.
Thank you. Bring our own table and chairs. That's definitely an idea we have picked, and we have to go forward with it. And I think, Lorraine, as you've put it, you've done it very well. A good example of how to do it. The arbitration pitch has been such a wonderful initiative to ensure that not only that arbitrators are given visibility out there, but it's a chance for the other practitioners to learn from, the senior practitioners who have gone ahead of us through their experiences and all that. Thank you so much. Allow me to bring in David.
Thank you, Chair. Now, mine is very simple. We need to appreciate the position the young practitioner has in the entire arbitration ecosystem in Africa. Okay, it's a very prominent position that we will not thrive without giving prominence to the people holding this position. Okay, that is number one. So my approach is different. I totally agree with what Lorraine has said. Mine is on thought leadership. Okay, the African scholar doesn't have the platform to communicate the thoughts. The African scholar, not the Kenyan scholar, the African scholar as a whole. Okay, it's an African problem. We need to have African solutions to African problems. Okay, you can't have an ESG arbitration dispute in Kenya being handled by an arbitrator from East Europe. Doesn't understand what is going on the ground, doesn't understand the African issues and the intricate challenges forming the substructure of the dispute. So for thought leadership, for me, is that we need to do joint advocacy. We can do it through our respective chapters, branches, or through the African Arbitration Association, where we just advocate for, if it's an African dispute, when you're entering into these PITs, kindly, let's insist on a particular qualification of arbitrator, where the arbitrator is probably of African origin or understands the African landscape. On matters of leadership, again, we need to have our own journal, which peer-reviewed and just addresses the African problem from the perspective of the African scholar. Thank you.
Thank you, David, for that. The young practitioner definitely occupies a very central place, and that is important for all of us to understand. Allow me to bring on board Charles.
Thank you very much, Herman. For me, I think looking forward, the most concrete step that we can take together as YMG leaders is to continue exposing the expertise that already exists within us. As it's said, until the lion tells his side of the story, the tale of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. So by telling our own stories and showcasing our skills, we ensure that arbitral users and institutions see that young African practitioners are ready to take on responsibility. We all know that first appointments rarely come out of the blue. They come through visibility and trust. So by actively showcasing the talent in our YMG spaces, we make it easier for arbitral users and institutions to recognize that this generation is not waiting in the shadows, but is prepared to serve. It's also said that he who does not know one thing knows another. Each one of us brings unique value, and collectively we form a reservoir of expertise that must be seen. In addition, we should work collectively with arbitral institutions across Africa. I think by collaborating and lobbying for YMG members who meet the required thresholds to be listed on their panels or to be appointed as tribunal secretaries, we provide our peers with a practical pathway into appointments. As it's also said, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So this combination of visibility through our networks and institutional recognition through listings or tribunal secretaries, I believe is the most effective way to help young practitioners secure that crucial first appointment. Of course, the main challenge is ensuring consistency, making sure that those we put forward truly meet the standards that are expected. But as it's also said, rain does not fall on one roof alone. The challenges of credibility and access are shared across our jurisdictions, and so must be our solutions. If we align trainings, mentorship programs, and networking with this goal, I think we can build a pipeline that both institutions and users can trust. In doing so, we can embody the wisdom of another proverb which says that wisdom is like a baobab tree. No one individual can embrace it. So together, let's nurture a sustainable future for arbitration in Africa. Thank you very much, Herman.
Thank you, Charles. Wisdom is like a baobab tree. Visibility, trust, and ensuring consistency. That is very, very, very clear. Thank you very much. Allow me to bring on board Jemete to give us his perspective.
Thank you very much. I mean, time is fast spent. Just to say that I align largely with what my colleagues have said. I personally, for one, try to think of myself as an African practitioner, ADR practitioner, not a Nigerian practitioner. And I think that it starts with the mindset. So my charge would be that, thankfully, arbitration is more procedural, right? As opposed, yes, you would be applying the substantive law, but then in terms of as a profession is more procedural. And so is largely the same thing. Most of our adjectival laws are based on UNCITRAL and, the other global procedural laws. So I would encourage all of us to, cascade to our different members that in learning arbitration, we don't see ourselves as being in silos or cocoons, but we see ourselves as being able to be called up for a reference to sit for something being seated in, say, in Nairobi, even though we are in Lagos, or seated in Malawi or wherever it is. And I think that with the right mindset, when we go to these conferences, when we're able to afford them, or even if we attend virtually, we're then beginning to look for people that are even outside our usual sphere of influence, and we're looking to develop relationships and friendships with people that are in other African jurisdictions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. African arbitrators and not Kenyan, Nigerian, Rwandan, Malawian. Thank you. Allow me to bring on board Gava very briefly.
Yes, thank you very much, Herman. I think we can unify and have some Pan-African strategies on a number of issues, some that have already been mentioned. Of course, I like to write, and of course, as we can see, most especially if you go maybe to study in the UK, you notice that one of the key issues is that we do not have enough written on Africa. So I concur with David that we should have some joint efforts on writing to share the unique African perspective and the unique African circumstances and context. So that would be one point. The conferences, we can all make use of this. We should, as and when you have the YMG conferences, we can liaise with each other to make sure that we are out of these, including webinars or other activities. We could explore having a podcast. I mean, sharing about, these African challenges, because we hear a lot about elsewhere. We don't hear a lot about ourselves. So we could have a continuous discussion about, some of these things. A webinar such as this, we could agree to have this either annually or biannually, and we see how best we can always come together from different parts of Africa to share some of these. Of course, I would also be very happy if our colleagues from elsewhere, because Africa has quite a number of countries, but you notice it's just a few of us. So I'd be very happy if other branches and chapters joined us, such that if possible, we could even have a whole day of this and maybe a number of panels. But that's it from me. Those are some of the efforts we can use to make sure that we unify some of these and such that we get our voice out more as Africans and also as young practitioners. Thank you, Herman.
Thank you very much. Unify our position, joint efforts in writing, and other platforms like podcasts, very important. Allow me to bring Kate very briefly.
Thank you once again, Herman. I think for me, the only addition I would make is that let's be deliberate and stay in touch. I think that my personal experience, I have established quite the network from this deliberate effort to stay in touch. I think I've met a number of the people on the panels and so many other arbitrators in Africa. And so I would just urge everyone to just stay in touch and, we might be able to put together really good ideas to promote ADR across Africa and the world. I also noticed in the comment section that a number of people are doing just that. People are posting their cell phone numbers and reaching out and giving descriptions of their names. So I hope that we will use that information to, carry on this network and just stay in touch as arbitrators. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's very true. I've also seen many people are giving that information so that we can get connected all through and through. Our time is spent. Allow me to bring this panel to an end at that point. I will have, as I promised, give the African trustee 2 minutes to respond to one or two issues. Please keep the comments coming on the comment section. If there are questions, they will be addressed after the second panel. Welcome, trustee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Herman, and congratulations to all the chairs for very valuable insights that you have shared, on this webinar today. And I have gained so much, sitting here, listening to our views. Now, let me highlight the views expressed by Kate and then the views expressed by David from Kenya, and that reflects the entirety or mostly the summary of all the views that have been expressed. But before I do that, allow me to just make a side comment to Mr. Martin, my very good friend from Malawi, Charles. While he was speaking, at some point I thought I was in my village because every time I go to my village, I hear a lot of proverbs. So thank you very much for bringing that nostalgia back to me this afternoon, Charles. Now, to the point made by David, I've always maintained this position that at the end of the day, we are all in this because we want to advance our careers as either arbitrators, mediators, or adjudicators. And if you look at the administrative structure of the CIAB, the branches occupy a very prominent position. And that was why, in my opening, I said we must be intentional about adjusting the way our branches operate. You know, the headquarters can make policies and provide guidance and provide support, but implementing those policies in a way that reflects or affects or benefits the members will be down to our branches. So our branches must be intentional about creating legacies that are inclusive, bringing opportunity to a lot of people. I was the chapter chair here in Abuja as a chair of the Abuja chapter. And within the 3 years of my tenure, we had a policy, that every appointment given to any senior arbitrator, we brought in junior members to act as our registrars. And I'm so happy now that our branch in Lagos has adopted it as a policy. Kenya also does the same thing. Every time Kenya gives you an appointment, Kenya will recommend a young member as a mentee under you, who then operates as a registrar. Once we begin to give people opportunities to grow, it will become a lot easier. Like somebody mentioned about the monies being paid, perhaps in subscription. When people get opportunities, the last time I was appointed, the registrar, I think, got paid about either 3 or 4, 3,000 USD. For that kind of person, paying subscription will be a lot easier. So people must be given opportunity at whatever level that they are, because that is what this is about. If I have gone to do training as an associate member or member level or fellowship level, and I've not had opportunity, then it becomes, a disincentive. But then Kate also, hit the nail on the head when she talked about pursuit, and that was what I had in mind. Now, I also use myself as an example. I had practiced law for 17 years before I delved into arbitration. And when I entered into arbitration, the general impression everybody was telling me here was that, Madam Mary, don't waste your time. It is a clique. They will not allow you. Don't waste your time. They cannot allow you to come in. I said, don't worry. Every time I'll go to the internet, I'll look at our senior members here. What is their qualification? All of them have a master's degree. Okay. What is their qualification? All of them are fellows. What is their qualification? All of them are chartered arbitrators. I was running between Abuja and London and Paris and South Africa. So, a number of times, some of them saw me in the plane, say, Madam, you are wasting your money. It's not possible. They cannot allow you to come in. But there is something one of our very prominent Supreme Court justices said some time ago, which I have internalized. He said, regardless of how bad a system is, there is always room at the top for somebody who brings value to the table or somebody who has merit. Regardless of how bad a system is, there's always room at the top for value and merit. So once you begin to, we are in Africa. Our approach in Africa is different. In Europe or in America, the emphasis is on what you know. They would ask you what you know before they will ask you your qualification. But in Africa, our emphasis is on qualification. Your qualification is a pre-requirement that opens the door for you before they will even ask you what you know. So I was running around from here to London. I became a fellow. I rushed off to Oxford. I did a diploma program. And I rushed off to did my master's, PhD, and all of that. And within 2 years that I finished my diploma program in Oxford, CIAB diploma program, I got appointed by ICC into an ICC tribunal, consortium dispute in Kenya. And I was the sole arbitrator. What I got paid from that appointment wrote off all the monies I had expended training myself. And ICC felt that I did a good job. Ordinarily, ICC does not appoint you, as a person directly. ICC will appoint you through your national committee. But because of the job I did in Kenya, as I felt I did excellently well, the next thing I saw, they appointed me directly from Paris. And it's been going on, like that. So the point I'm making is that, which is the point that Kate made. As young practitioners, you must be intentional about prioritizing what you want for yourself. At the point I made a decision that this is the area for me, ADR, arbitration particularly. I paid the price. I denied myself comfort in exposing myself to very best of practice, which is why I am very unwavering in my commitment to CIAB, because the CIAB gave me a platform, exposed me to the best of trainings. So as much as we want to, I support mentorship, obviously. I support inclusion, obviously. But for you as an individual, you must also be intentional about what you want and how you position yourself, and paying the price, for getting what you want. The next point I want to make is with regards to the statement made by David, which I disagree with. I am not sure anybody is going to appoint you as an arbitrator because you are African. They will appoint you because you are going in there to bring value to the table. If you check the statistics of African disputes, emanating from Africa, a lot of those appointments are given to people from outside. Why? That is which takes us to the next panel. For as long as we begin to expose ourselves to best trainings, begin to show expertise, in the things we do and how we do them, it will come. It's just a matter of time. It will come. So I encourage us as young people to please keep doing what you're doing, and let's do this a lot more often. Let's this webinar not be a one-off. Let's do it as perhaps you share the responsibility among yourselves. This one was organized by Uganda. Next time should be organized by Zambia, or should be organized by Malawi, or should be organized by Kenya around the year, so that you begin to engage a lot more. And the point made by Maggie is very important. I mean, what stops the Kenyan arbitrators from getting appointments in Nigeria? What stops from the Zambian arbitrators by getting appointments in Nigeria? After all, it's common law. We all have different, understanding. I mean, the same understanding of the applicable laws and procedures. So the more we do this, the more we put a face to our names. For instance, if I'm acting, or my office is acting as counsel, for a dispute that is in Kenya, I know Kenyan faces very, enlightened and knowledgeable people that can be appointed. So, but people need to put a face to you. People need to know you by your first name. That is how this business works. I cannot appoint somebody I don't know as an arbitrator. And how do they know you? By what we are doing. So let's keep doing it, and let's keep being involved in developing our branches across Africa and being inclusive in the way our branches are run. Thank you very much, Mr. Herman. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Regardless how bad a system is, there's always room at the top for value. That is key. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for my very able panelists. You've brought out the points very well, and I believe that all of us have learned. I personally learned quite a lot from all of you. I would want to now yield the floor to Liz to bring in the next panel. As I do that, again, allow me just to extend an invitation to all of us. This October, between 10th and 12th, we have our AFA, 6th AFA conference in Cairo, Egypt. We welcome all of you. On the 10th, we will have the Young AFA conference, where we will continue with this discussion that we are having here. So see you all in Cairo. Welcome, Liz. Take it out from here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Herman. It was a very good session, and we are glad that the panelists gave us the various insights that they have. So right on to that, we have the second session that's going to be moderated by Lorraine and Veronica. So Lorraine and Veronica, you can take us through the next session.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And we are going to run through this because I believe that the foundation has been set and all we need is to learn from our senior practitioners what it will take for Africa to become a safe seat for arbitration so that when there's more work, we will also have more opportunities. I'll be doing this with Veronica and I'm so glad to be here with her. Before I go on, I'll just give a brief intro about Veronica and also introduce Mr. Omwaka, who is a Leonard Seal from Nigeria. So Veronica is a seasoned legal practitioner from Zambia. She's a professional member of the CIAB and a committee member of the Young Members Group Zambia branch. You can connect with her on LinkedIn and I'll be sharing her LinkedIn profile on the chat. Now we're moving on to the introduction of Mr. Godwin. And as I said earlier, he is a Leonard Silk in Nigeria, and he has quite a long profile. I'll also be sharing his on the chat. But just briefly, he's a senior advocate of Nigeria, partner in dispute resolution of Templars, and they have so many different areas where they work. He holds a master's from the Queen Mary University of London and the University of Law London, first degree also from Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, and he also sits on various panels and various institutions of arbitration. He's recognized as a leading practitioner in the field by the leading legal directories such as Legal 500. Mr. Godwin Omwaka, you are welcome. Over to you, Veronica.
Thank you very much, Lawrence.
Thank you very much, Lorraine, for that introduction. In the same vein, as we've already heard in the first session, Lorraine is a seasoned young lawyer, arbitration practitioner, and academic from Ghana. Lorraine is also the host of the Arbitration Pitch. You can connect with her via LinkedIn and you can subscribe to her YouTube channel. I will send the link in the chat box. And to help us unpack the topic at hand, we have, apart from Mr. Godwin, we have Mr. Isaac Bizumuremi from Rwanda. He's a legal practitioner with over 17 years experience and the managing partner for Lex Chambers. He practices commercial arbitration, commercial transactions, insolvency, and corporate rescue, among others. Isaac holds a Master of Laws degree in International Dispute Resolution or Commercial Arbitration from Queen Mary University of London, among other powerful credentials. Isaac is also a mediator and member of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators London, empaneled at the Kigali International Arbitration Center. Welcome, Isaac.
Thank you, Veronica.
And so we'll begin with our first. Veronica, would you like to take that for us, please?
Okay. We have an interesting topic this afternoon. And the topic we have is the trust deficit. What will it take to make Africa a safe seat for arbitration? As we all know, the seat of arbitration is crucial in defining the legal framework for arbitral proceedings. So in order to kickstart the discussion, I will ask the first question to you, Isaac. What is your concept of a safe seat?
Yeah, thank you, Veronica. Thank you, fellow colleagues, arbitrators. So, thank you, our trustee, and my colleague Godwin. I just want to proceed by responding to your question, Veronica. So the concept or the notion of the safe seat, you can derive it from the word safe. Safe, something that is safe for arbitration. So it's generally understood to be a jurisdiction that offers arbitral-friendly legal framework and that is modern, that has all is known to have independent and efficient judiciary with minimum court interference and with no critical or bad history of annulling arbitral awards or setting them aside. So this notion, once these characteristics of the safe seat are identified in every jurisdiction, then you can safely say this jurisdiction is a safe seat for arbitration. There was a research that was made and published in 2020 by Delos. Delos is a Paris-based arbitral institution, and it highlighted 6 criteria for a safe seat. And one of them, and they include that a safe seat must be characterized by a clear law that is modern in the concept or in the context of international arbitration. One that recognizes and respects parties' choice of arbitration. In other words, this jurisdiction should have no clauses in the legal framework that gives the judiciary the power to overturn the parties' consent if they have agreed to go to arbitration. And where there is even where the clause is not clear, or what we normally call pathological, whether the parties agree to go to arbitration or not, that judicial system must be ready, or that legal system might provide that where there is a word arbitration, it should support that parties intended to go to arbitration, because there is no way people can be drinking, there's no way they can expect people drinking milk, and then you bring in a Scotch whiskey in, and then you think, no, I meant a Scotch whiskey, not milk. So these are not closely related drinks. So a clear law must at least specify or be clear that where there is any tendency toward this arbitration, it should support arbitration. That is one characteristic of a safe seat. I mentioned about the judiciary, but the judiciary should not only support, but it must be competent in terms of capacities to understand and interpret case laws where previous or other jurisdictions have made analysis and decided on a matter that has to do with arbitration. So having a clear and a supportive judiciary and even legal framework cannot in itself on themselves justify or give a credit a jurisdiction to be a safe seat. That jurisdiction must have at least minimum legal expertise of independent professionals. So the previous panel discussion talked about this thing, and the trustee gave an example of how he built his expertise. So there is a jurisdiction that lacks professional arbitrators professional lawyer counsels that would act as counsel in arbitration that wouldn't give, sympathy to that jurisdiction as a safe seat for arbitration. The right to representation, that is a must. And accessibility, this is very vital. This has nothing to do with the legal framework or skills. But imagine you are in a jurisdiction in Africa where for someone from another country to come to your capital or your place, for example, has to pass through Europe. I know there's a North African country that I traveled in some time back, and I had to go via Europe. So accessibility is very important. What about the visa restrictions? What about national legal restrictions, such as allowing the parties, allowing foreigners to come and represent their clients in arbitrations? So all those things are considered by arbitration community to determine whether a certain jurisdiction is a safe seat for arbitration. If visa is high or if the application process is very cumbersome, trust me, this alone would tantamount as a safe seat for arbitration in that jurisdiction. Of course, then there are ethics. It is often said that Africa is corrupt, and that the judiciary, the lawyers, everyone. So ethics is very important. If a country has these low levels in terms of international rating, those are the basis that we can use at least. If the low levels of corruption, the jurisdiction has low levels of corruption, if it has independence of the judiciary, those things are going to affect the rating of your jurisdiction, whether you are safe for a seat of arbitration. Last time I came across one researcher that stated that in Africa, the only safe country, the only safe seat, the country that is safe for the seat of arbitration was Mauritius. Can you imagine? Is that true? I don't know. I did not take time to read the methodology that they used to reach that conclusion. But like how the trustee just stated earlier, the work is for us Africans. We have to work to reverse this narrative that has been there, that is historical, colonial. We have to reverse it, and you have to work hard. There is an investment that is required from us, and I'm very happy for the younger members groups that are coming up. Please, for some of us, including me, we are in the late evening of our life. We are not going to do much for you, but it's good that you are there and you are initiating and discussing these issues. It means that you realize that Africa is prejudiced and it affects you and us as well. I think this is what I can say on the concept of seat. I'll come back later when you ask. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Isaac, for that elaborate response. Over to you, Lorraine.
Yes, so Godwin will be leaving us shortly. He also has another commitment, but I would like to get as much from him as possible. So I would like to hear his concept of a safe seat and also the challenges preventing Africa from becoming a safe seat. Welcome, Godwin.
Thank you, Lauren. And let me say kudos to the Young African Arbitrators Group for putting this very excellent webinar together. It's very inspiring to see what you guys are doing. In my time, we didn't have this, so I think somehow I'm a bit jealous how you guys are able to come together, network, and do your stuff. You know, it's really good, and it just shows the future where we're going in Africa, right? And I can only see positive things coming out of this. So kudos to all of you. Safe seat, Africa, the safe seat. Interesting question. You know, let me start by saying this. Africa is not a monolith. So Africa cannot and is not a safe seat or an unsafe seat. But what I will say is that certain countries in Africa, I think that's the question, certain countries in Africa can be safe seats, right? And we will look at those, because when you say, is Africa a safe seat, then the question presupposes that Africa is one whole hegemony. We're talking about one continent, right? But I think we should look at various countries in the continent that could potentially be safe seats. And there are countries that are developing to be safe seats, all right? I think that's the way to look at it on a jurisdiction by jurisdiction, case by case basis, because what determines whether there is a safe seat, I mean, the criteria are basically the same across board, but you discover that country by country, the implementation is very different. For instance, the legal framework. You see, certain countries in Africa have developed and modernized their legal framework over time. One very good example is Nigeria, who in 2023, yes, that's my country.
No, yeah.
Yes, we passed the Arbitration and Mediation Act, all right?
Yeah.
That act, I mean, encompasses or embodies what is international best practice in international commercial arbitration. Now, there are countries who have not modernized their legal framework in the past 40, 50 years in Africa. Can you say those countries are really safe seats? That's the question. Again, my brother Isaac talked about judicial support. That is critical. Across the continent, we are beginning to see our judiciary from Kenya to Nigeria to South Africa to Uganda to Ghana recently. I saw a Ghana division whereby, and you should smile for that, Laurie, whereby our courts are becoming more arbitration friendly, taking more pro-arbitration stance in terms of enforcing arbitral agreements, in terms of enforcing arbitral awards. Cycle back 20, 30 years ago, that probably wasn't the case. But now we're beginning to see the jurisprudence emerging from African countries, clearly signaling and signposting that certain countries in Africa are really pro-arbitration friendly and could potentially, arguably, be described as safe seats, right? Cairo, Egypt, Kigali, Mauritius, you know, Isaac mentioned Mauritius. These are generally regarded as arbitration-friendly zones. And if you go to the School of Oriental and African Studies survey of 2020, it listed 5 countries. I think South Africa, Nigeria, I can't remember the rest, but it listed 5 countries. And in 2024, the 2024 survey also confirmed the same thing about the seats in Africa where that are generally considered safe, right? But why are they considered safe? Again, Isaac mentioned a few of them. You have to look about the legal framework. It must be modern. You have to look at judicial support for arbitration. You have to look at the emergence of strong arbitral institutions on the continent in key countries. For instance, SICA in Egypt, KIAC in Kigali, you have LCA, LIASEAC in Nigeria, you have NEAC in Nairobi, and all of that, right? they are increasingly administering disputes and rendering services that, you can arguably say makes them to be almost at par with some of the foremost topmost arbitral institutions in the world, right? So these for me are some of the key pointers that indicate whether a seat is safe or could be regarded as being pro arbitration. Of course, there are issues in Africa. We do not deny that, right? In terms of countries who judiciary do not support arbitration. They're not really arbitration friendly, because that's very important. Because at the end of the day, what are we talking about here? You have investors who are coming into your country to invest. And what they are looking at is, are they able to repatriate their funds at the end of the day? And in the event of a dispute, how quickly their commercial parties, how quickly can they recover their money and repatriate it? And if you don't have a judicial system that supports that, if you don't have legal frameworks that enable that, if you don't have other support structures, right, and encourage them to be able to do that, then they're not going to come to your jurisdiction. Mm-hmm. So in Africa, we have countries that look safe. I used to think that Nigeria was an unsafe seat. Let me come to my country for arbitration, right? And then a few years ago, we did a study. Templars did a study, and I think Bodrick Bozimo did the same study. And what did we find out? It was interesting, because then it was perception that Nigeria was an unsafe seat. But we found that increasingly, Nigerian courts have taken pro-arbitration stance. They've enforced arbitration agreements. They've enforced arbitral awards. All right. And except in those cases where you have perhaps government as a respondent party, generally, the Nigerian courts have been active in promoting the gospel of arbitration. But of course, there's the lingering issue of delay as well. So we have to put it on the balance. And that, for me, sort of demystify the myth that Nigeria is an unsafe seat for arbitration. So my conclusion would be that let's look at it on a case-by-case basis, on a country-by-country basis. But I am encouraged by the fact that despite the challenges that African countries are facing, increasingly we're beginning to see African countries emerge as safe seats in Africa. Others are on their way to being there, developing, and then others are still far lagging behind. So I wouldn't say use a blanket phrase that Africa is a safe and unsafe seat, but I will say that there are countries in Africa that are safe. There are countries in Africa that are moving towards being safe, and there are countries in Africa that God help them.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Godwin, for that. I heard you mention some countries like Mauritius and, of course, Nigeria. So my follow-up question is, apart from those two, are there some other notable success stories or case studies of arbitration in Africa that can serve as models for future growth?
Yeah, there are. For instance, we can talk about Egypt, CICA, right? It's important that Egypt has played a critical role in being a successful arbitration state in Africa. We can talk about Kigali, which is Rwanda as well, which 12 years ago they started KIAC. Today they're seen as one of the safest seats in Africa for arbitration. We can talk about Mauritius. We can talk about South Africa. These are success stories, all right, of African seats where you can say, and you can beat your chest to say, these are African countries that have proven themselves over time to be pro-arbitration. And why do we say they are successful? again, it goes back to the point, enabling legal framework. Their laws are based mostly on the UNCITRAL model, right? And they've improved on that. You begin to see them including provisions like for appointment of emergency arbitrators, third-party funding, and all of that in their arbitration framework, right? You're beginning to see them enforcing arbitral awards consistent with the New York Convention and all of that. You're seeing the judiciary support that process, because until you have all of this in place, then you cannot make a success of it. And in these countries as well, you see the institutions. Africa in Egypt, the Egyptians should forgive me if I don't pronounce it correctly, the acronym correctly, which have administered some very important arbitrations on the African continent, right? Kigali, the same thing. It's developing a reputation. Mauritius, the Center MIAC in Mauritius is developing a reputation. The other day, I think in Kenya, there were some laws that were passed making MIAC, an important by the government institution for resolving arbitration disputes. So these are institutions that are doing well. But are they there? Not completely. I wouldn't say it is Uhuru yet, but they are a success because they need a lot of capital injection. They need good facilities. They need modern technology. They need very modern infrastructure. They need capacity in terms of human resources to be able to run and administer these institutions, and they can benefit from partnering with international and foreign institutions and arbitral institutions to ensure that they develop the necessary capacity and competence to run arbitration competently. I don't think there's an African arbitral institution, and I'm not speaking ahead of myself. I may probably be speaking ahead of myself right now, who has modern technology. But we have continued to do arbitration based on the limited technology that is available to us, and we have made a success of it. But when you want to use applications or softwares or platforms like Opus, right, then that is a different ballgame entirely, and you need a lot of capital to be able to do that. So to answer your question, yes, we have a few countries in Africa who have made a success of their country and institutions of success of that. And I think they will serve as models for other African states to make progress. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Godwin.
You're welcome.
And now move on to Isaac. We'd like to find out from you, and from your experience, are there some key things that these institutions or countries that are lacking behind? Are there some things they can learn from those who have gone ahead of them, apart from the legal framework, which is quite an obvious one?
Thank you, Lorraine. Yes, I think what I would say that what other countries lack, one that is very important is basically the state support. So in Rwanda there was it is an underlying principle that where there's an arbitration that involves a country, at least there will be if they have to outsource arbitrators, a firm from outside, but a local firm or a local arbitrator will at least be part of that firm as a way of building the capacities in that. So there is an intention that is probably lacks where it is not going well, and there's intention where it is going well. So our countries have to be intentional. They have to embrace arbitration and know that this is the way forward. Arbitration does not only resolve cases, disputes. But arbitration is a very key factor in considering or rating the country as for the doing business, ratings by the World Bank, IMF, whatever. So the country has to support, and it can support in different ways, apart from the legal framework, but also setting up these arbitrary institutions. I remember my country, Rwanda, for many years, and I think up to now, I'm not sure, but it has been supporting KIAK in terms of budget. Much as KIAK does collect some membership fees, but these membership fees cannot run KIAK activities. So the government has to have this intention to support this so that the international community can basically know that Rwanda and its KIAK do exist. KIAK was just established in 2011. It's not a very long time compared, but it is competing in terms of numbers with the Cairo that has been there for ages. The other fact that the countries needs to do is as I mentioned, I think it was mentioned earlier, legal framework alone cannot work. You have to build an ecosystem of arbitration from A to Z. So we need a judiciary that is equipped with knowledge. Of course, not all judges have to have the knowledge of arbitration, but there has to be a section or a number of judges that have to know this. The professionals have to be there. So these are the people who defend, who gonna defend this arbitration case. You cannot be a counsel in arbitration if you don't have the arbitration skills. The arbitrator themselves too. We always look for arbitrators to appoint, and sometimes you cannot find because of the minimum qualification that we find. Not every lawyer can just be an arbitrator. Then the other point, other than just building and strengthening the system of arbitration, is again facilitation the government environment, the country's environment. As I mentioned, people need to be free to access your services. By accessing your services, we are talking, is it easy for people to come to your country for this? Or can you wake up and go to Nairobi? Can I wake up and go to Nigeria? How much?
Yeah, I think Isaac's network is frozen. So just ask Godwin if he's able to pick up from where he left off regarding accessibility. Can parties or can individuals who have disputes easily go to these other countries, making it a safe seat? Hi, Godwin, please, you're muted.
Can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Some of us are too great and we don't understand these basic technologies anymore. That's a key consideration, right? Accessibility. And sadly, what we find on our beloved continent, is that our infrastructure is lagging behind. It's not as developed as we would have loved it to be. For instance, I recall when we were doing a program, an ICC arbitration program recently, for some of us to travel to some African countries. We have to fly to Europe to fly back to Africa. Some people had to go to Dubai, if that Asia, I mean, one of the OIC to come back to certain countries in Africa.
Expensive.
Yes, that speaks to the question of costs, time, cost. So when you're talking about accessibility, we're looking at countries where the travel is very easy. Government have made travel very easy. Visa applications are easy for foreigners to obtain. There are direct flights in and out. You have good infrastructure, good buildings, good internet communication to facilitate arbitration. Very nice hotels. It's very important, yes, because when you want to do arbitration, you need to go and stay in very comfortable places. All right. So these are important things people take into consideration. And some of the matters that also drive the question of the seat, where the seat is located. Why would I want to go and do an arbitration in a country where I have to travel for 3 days or 4 days and spend a lot more money when I can just get to another country in 6 hours? I'm in the same place and it costs me a lot less. So that is important. So I think there must be a strategic partnership between the arbitration community in Africa, in our various countries, and their home governments, right? To develop the infrastructure in their country, to help provide a judicial system that is supportive of the arbitral process. It's very key, right? And Isaac was talking about training of judges and not all the judges being trained. To my mind, I think it's important the way the continent is going, and given now the obvious disadvantages of litigation, that we are able to train as much as possible a broad spectrum of personnel. Capacity is key. When when our judiciaries understand arbitration, when they understand that arbitration every year, based on certain statistics that I've seen, contribute about $3 trillion to the global economy, then you know we are talking about big business. You had the African trustee. After investing on himself, the first arbitration he did took care of all the investment he made.
Yeah.
And I know a senior colleague a few years ago, I think I was in Tanzania. No, yes, I was in Zanzibar. And I was mourning to one of our colleagues, a renowned African arbitrator, how expensive it is for us to travel and all of that and stay in hotels. And they just looked at me and said, God, we relax. So one big arbitration and all these your bills are gone. You recoup your investment.
Yeah.
Right? So that is, but you must have capacity. And capacity includes our judges must have the capacity, they must understand the arbitral process. The idea of issuing decisions and rulings that conflict with the arbitration process should be a thing of the past. We should strategically market our institutions as having the capacity to administer arbitrations, both international commercial arbitration and investment arbitration, all right? I'm happy that in terms of investment arbitration, we are now beginning to see that a few arbitrations are now currently seated and are ongoing on the continent. Before, it used to be an almost ICSID and ICC exclusive preserve, with ICSID taking about 90% or so. But now there are a few trickles coming into the continent, okay? So it's important that we market our arbitral institutions, we showcase their capacity. And for instance, the LCA, the Lagos Code of Arbitration, has one of the best facilities on the continent. Yeah, I can see you're smiling, but that's true. All right. It has one of the best facilities on the continent. It may have run down a bit, but the truth of the matter is that it does have it, right? So we need a more injection of capital into that facility. And I think across the continent, the same thing. We don't want government money. We're not asking for government money. We're looking for international funding, because you don't want government to begin to influence your arbitration community and processes, all right? And then foreigners begin to say, oh, this people are not independent, their governments are intervening and all of that. So we don't want that. But we should be able to raise funding from the IFC, from the World Bank, from other arbitration-friendly institutions that secures our independence as well. Okay, so I think that's the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Godwin. Over to you, Veronica.
Thank you very much, Lorraine. Isaac, I heard you mention arbitration practitioners being available. Then I also heard Godwin talk about capacity building. I would like to get it from you. Does the number and quality of arbitration practitioners in a country count towards naming such a country a safe seat for arbitration? What is your take on that?
Thank you very much. And my apologies. Power went off.
Oh.
And these are one of the infrastructure things I was talking about.
Yes.
Thank you, Godwin, for stepping in on my behalf. Yeah, so Veronica, on your question, the numbers I think matter because the fewer the numbers of arbitrators, they give rise to the issue of conflict. They become conflicted. So if there are few numbers of arbitrators and they are involved in all arbitration cases, so in short term, you find that one arbitrator has almost been either an arbitrator for a number of clients, or he has been a counsel, so it can be an issue, and then it becomes difficult for a client to make a choice. So you can have these skills, but in time you find you're already conflicted. You are maybe, and you cannot meet these minimum guidelines, IBA guidelines that we often use. So I think the number matters in this to provide a safe seat jurisdiction. I don't know what probably what others think, but that is my take.
Thank you so much, Isaac. Godwin,
Go ahead.
Same question. What do you think of and the quantity? Does it affect our states being or not?
Obviously, it does. Clearly, it does. You cannot run away from the fact that capacity and competence are very, very critical elements of every arbitration practitioner, and towards deciding whether a particular country is a safe seat or not. But the point is this: let's not be deceived, right? And I'm not trying here to blow our trumpet at the continent, but like the Bible says, like Paul says in the Bible to the people of Galatians, who have bewitched you, be not deceived. Point is, there's a myth about a lack of competence on the continent. That is all about the dash. It's crap as far as I'm concerned. It's psychological brainwashing, as I used to call it. We have competent arbitrational practitioners on the continent. Lawyers, arbitrators, all right? And so, in my view, I believe that the industry is well equipped on the continent. And I travel around a bit and I see younger, very competent African lawyers working in some of the best law firms across the globe. They may not be resident in Africa, but they are Africans. And some of them are of African origin. They work in some of the best arbitration boutiques and law firms in the world. So capacity is not an issue on the continent. I do not deny that there will be that there's always room for improvement. We can always improve. And I think just like the African trustee said earlier, younger arbitrators have to work hard to get there. But I also like to advise younger arbitrators to say that arbitration is not a tea party. It is serious business. It is not about speaking on webinars. It is not about speaking at conferences and having a gala night afterwards. No. It is big business. It's where people are very, very serious. So if you do not have the capacity, either as an arbitrator or as a counsel in arbitration, there is a problem. And let me tell you, the word spreads around like wildfire. People speak. By the time you are seated in a panel, you're in a panel, and you're in a panel with your colleagues, they form their views about you, your competence, your capacity, your mindset, your attitudes, and all of that, all right? And they're able to share and pass information to colleagues. And so you're surprised that if you're not good enough, you're not getting appointed. And you're asking yourself, why are you not getting appointment? Well, don't worry, people are snitching, like my children would like to say, talk about it. All right. So it's very important that for us to have safe seats in Africa, we have to keep building capacity. We have to keep learning, we have to keep training, we have to keep developing ourselves and not rest on our laurels to think that, oh, we're already there. No. The arbitral world is moving. It's in a constant state of flux. And you need to move as well. I mean, I can mention her here. I am amazed and impressed that even at her age, with her experience, Mrs. Adekoya still attends a lot of trainings. I see her, someone with such a huge stature at that age who's done it for almost 50 years, still attending training. You go to a lot of the trainings in the Western world, you see people in their 70s and 80s who have been practicing arbitration, who have written books and articles and written important awards, still attending trainings. So we need to continue to train ourselves. I think for our younger ones, to have that conveyor belt going on, they need to position themselves in critical positions where they need to learn and keep learning and developing themselves. And I'm sure that at the end of the day, Africa will ultimately be the best for it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Over to you.
As Veronica asked me a question, I can't recall if she had asked me.
Yes. So we are moving on to the question session, and we'd like to invite anybody who has a question, a comment, to kindly share so that our speakers can answer. I think we have our African trustee with the first question. Please go ahead, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, Lauren, and thank you very much, Lenasik, Omwaka, and of course to Mr. Isaac. Now, mine is not more of a question, but more of a comment. And to be able to comment, I'm assuming that the Chatham House rules apply here, and that we could speak frankly to ourselves as Africans. We are all aligned.
They do.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We are all aligned on what we want. What we want is the best for Africa. But to be able to have that best and to be able to arrive destination we are seeking to go to, perhaps we should also be accept, divergent opinions on issue. And I wish I could share a lot of the optimism of my learned senior advocate, Mr. Maka. I wish I could share some of the views that he expressed, with regards to particularly specific countries in Africa as safe seats. Do I want Africa states to be safe seats? Of course, yes. Do I want Nigeria to be a safe seat? Of course, yes. Is Nigeria a safe seat at the moment? I'm not sure. And why did I say so? I think the starting point should be for us to look at in 2015, during the centenary conference of CIR, there was this principles, the London principles framed, and which is, the reference point with regards to, characterizing a country as a safe state. One of the things mentioned there is the issue of legal representation. Parties to arbitration should be able to nominate representation of their choice. If Mr. Maka is acting for a client in London as counsel, he will freely appear before that tribunal as counsel and profile his expertise. I've had the opportunity of representing Nigeria as counsel in an investment arbitration in London, and I appeared as counsel. But if, I mean, without being called to the English bar, but if an English lawyer has an arbitration matter in Nigeria, he will be unable to appear as counsel without having a Nigerian lawyer leading him. That is an inhibition. Number two, I always, during the board meeting in London, during the, Reebok lecture, we had a lecture on P&ID, and I asked a question to the presenter. If that legal challenge was made in Nigeria, for instance, is there a possibility that the outcome could have been the same? I don't want to answer it. That is for us to answer. Number three, there is a research carried out by Queen Mary College together with Pricewaterhouse with regards to the drivers of international arbitration. In other words, what is the most important consideration that users recognize as as the advantage of international arbitration? And every time that question is posed, the choice is enforceability. We choose international arbitration because it is enforceable, which is understandable. Okay, most African countries have signed on to the New York Convention. That is number one. But then comes the recourse to courts. Our courts, are they able to provide the kind of support? Of course, I agree wholly with the views of the learned senior advocate, when he said that courts have given judgments that are pro-arbitration. That is wonderful. But in terms of, enforcement, just last week at our MBA conference, somewhere in the eastern part of Nigeria, they called relitigating arbitration matters. Do we have an award and then enforce it easily in court? Or do we have an award and then it goes through real litigation in court up to Supreme Court? The average time frame for litigating at the High Court is 3 years, assuming the court is efficient. The average time frame for litigating at the Court of Appeal, another 3 years, assuming also, we don't have election matters in between. Then the average time frame for litigating at the Supreme Court is maybe 5-7 years. So with all of this in mind, can we say definitively that we have arrived? I'm not in a hurry to say that. Of course, I recognize that we are evolving towards arriving at a safe seat. Like the senior advocate said, we have a very up-to-date and innovative legal framework in our arbitration law, which was passed in 2023. And expertise is growing in Nigeria. A lot of people are being trained. A lot of our judges are fellows of the institute. I mean, and they are becoming supportive, but I think we are still evolving. And let me not touch on a very sore nerve now of our Zambian friends here. because I know I've been invited to speak at a seminar in Zambia, and everyone was scared to talk about it, and they were prompting me behind. Madam, talk about it. Nobody wants to speak about it. And that is the issue of our serving justices taking appointments as arbitrators. I'm not sure that sits well with the requirements of independence and impartiality of a judiciary. When a judicial officer sits as an arbitrator on Monday, then goes back to sit as a judge on Tuesday. Or when a serving judicial officer, uses judicial facilities to sit as arbitrator. Of course, I understand that the current Chief Justice of Zambia is very amenable to a change. And my prayer, my hope is that we'll keep pushing, we'll keep talking about it, because our prayer and our expectation is that Africa becomes, the African countries become safe seats, of international arbitration, from Ghana to Kenya to, Zambia to, recently something happened, in Kigali, which brings me to my last point. The very first matter that was set aside, the very first Kigali, the KIAC Arbitration Award that was set aside, was handled by an arbitrator in Rwanda. And it was just a very simple procedural error that led to the setting aside of that award. And then the claimant refiled the same award again before KIAC, and I was appointed as arbitrator. And then I rendered an award last year, and very happily, the award has been challenged and has been enforced. What that speaks to is that as practitioners, which is the last point that Learned Advocate made, as practitioners, we must continue to develop ourselves in a way that allows us to render awards that are valid and enforceable. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that insight, Doc.
Yes, if I may, a few responses.
Yes,
Thank you very
yes.
much, Ikwendu, for your comments. On the question of foreign counsel appearing under Nigerian law, yes, you are right to a certain extent. That was under the old ACA, where the courts interpreted the provisions of Section 24 of the LPA, Legal Practitioners Act. But following the amendments of the introduction of the AMA in 2023, that provision was taken out of the LPA, of the AMA. So right now, foreign counsel can actually appear in arbitration proceedings in Nigeria, because the old position of the law, fell away with the introduction of the AMA in 2023. So that is one positive development that we have seen. Yes, on the question of our courts, I agree completely with you. And you can recall, I gave 3 categories of African seats. Those that are there, that we can say are safe seats, those that are edging towards being safe seats, and then those that, like I said, may God help them, right? They're still where they are, right? Do we have issues in Nigeria? Obviously, we do. I will be the first to admit that. And I think one problem we have is also the attitude of counsel, legal practitioners in Nigeria. Because the first thing they do once they get an award is to advise their clients to challenge. All right. Our judges have been trained, like the African trustee said. A lot of them are members and fellows of the Institute, and increasingly they are beginning to understand the arbitral process. And more, they are training away these applications out of the court system. But do you have the ones that I would call a few rogue decisions where they have gotten it wrong? Yes, they have gotten it wrong a few times. And when they do, it is our responsibility as arbitration practitioners to point it out to them. Recently, I wrote an article where I reviewed some of the recent Nigerian decisions where they've gotten it wrong on perhaps whether a Nigerian court can enforce a foreign-seated arbitration, right? An award from a foreign-seated arbitration. And I mean, there were conflicting Court of Appeal decisions. And in an article I published about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I reviewed those decisions and came to the conclusion that the Nigerian courts do not, and try to point the Nigerian courts in the right direction. So that's our responsibility as arbitration practitioners, to continue to educate, to train our judges, right? So I do agree that from time to time we get it wrong. I do agree that the length of time that this case is spent in court can be a setback. I have been involved in a few of those cases up to the Supreme Court level, and I can tell you it's very frustrating for the clients and for even ourselves as counsel. But we cannot fold our hands. We have to keep pushing for a reform of the process. So I think that is where we are. And like I said, Africa, there are countries in Africa who are getting there. There is no country in the world that does not have problems. Even the England that you talk about, if you speak with the average English lawyer, it will tell you that it takes a long time, right, for enforcement proceedings in England to be resolved. An average of about 2 years. It's not done in months. So there are also issues there, right? So those are the sort of things we need to deal with. The P&ID decision, again here, I think I will disagree a bit with the African Trustee. I think that if that case were to be decided by a Nigerian court, we'll probably have a similar outcome. Because I mean, the fraud, the corruption, the fraud in that case was stinking to the high heavens, and it was obvious for everyone to see. Thank you, Veronica.
Thank you very much, Godwin.
But our judges are not wearing double hats. They're not sitting as arbitrators and judges. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, I see Samantha asked a question. Who has to choose the seat? Is it the council? Is it the parties or the arbitrator? So my answer to this question is that a seat is very, very important element, an interest of parties. So the parties have interest in it, and they have this preserve to choose the seat. When the parties do not choose or do not agree to a seat, either in agreement or after the dispute has arisen, then the matter is left to the arbitrator, to the tribunal. The councils for the parties will be acting on behalf of the parties, and they will go through those considerations to determine what is the best seat for the case. But the principal owner of the right to choose the seat is the parties. Where they fail to agree, the tribunal. I think that's what I can say to this.
Anything from you, Godwin?
Yes, I think Isaac is spot on. That's the way it operates. The parties will choose at the time of signing the arbitration agreement or the arbitration clause. And if they fail to do so, then after the arbitration has commenced, it is possible that they can agree subsequently on the seat. But where that does not happen, if it is an institutional arbitration, right, then the tribunal will have to decide the question of the seat. You find that in the ICC rules, you find it in the LCIA rules, I think of Article 14 or so, all of that. They have to decide the question of the seat. The HKIAC rules, the SIAC rules, all provide for the arbitrators to decide the question of the seat based on the parties' express choice of law, and where there is no express choice of law, then probably by an implication, all right? So the tribunal will have to go through that very tedious process to determine what the seat of arbitration is.
Thank you very much, Godwin, for that. I'll invite one last question. Anyone with a question?
It's a Friday, like we say in Nigeria, TGI, everybody's Friday. So I'm sure a lot of people are already in their jeans.
I see no questions. I will now invite you, Godwin, to give your final remarks.
Oh, thank you very much, Veronica. Again, I want to commend the team that has put this together so well. Thank you for what you have done. I look at this and I feel and I know and I'm confident that arbitration in Africa is in safe hands, just as we have safe seats. I see the future, and I see that a younger generation of very competent, able lawyers, arbitration practitioners. Let me not use the word lawyers. Arbitration practitioners are coming through the ranks in Africa, and I can only be encouraged by what I see. I want to encourage you all to continue to do what you do, try to improve yourself. It is not cheap, I must say. It is difficult because some of you may not be able to raise the finances to attend some of the trainings you want to attend and all of that, but remain steadfast, remain focused, build capacity. One day you'll be recognized, and hopefully it will be better for you personally and for our continent at a broader level. So thank you very much, and have a good day.
Thank you very much, Godwin. Over to you, Isaac, your final remarks.
Thank you, Veronique. I just want to ask you a favor that before I give my final remark, there's something I wanted to mention about the seat. And
please go ahead. Please go ahead.
And the position of Africa. You know, I was surprised to see that in 1958 we had the first two African countries, Egypt and Morocco, to be among the first 24 signatories of the New York Convention. That is way, way, way back. Many Europeans did not ratify the convention in time. But by the time it came into force, at least we had two African countries. We have so far 42 countries out of 54 who are African countries which are signatories to the New York Convention. And that represents about probably around 78% of African countries. We have these countries that have been members of this convention for ages. And so I think the youngest is Malawi, which just ratified the acceded in 2021. So we have a history. Africa has a history in arbitration. And the question that Godwin said is that yes, we have this. We have the legal framework. We have this knowledge of our state. But what is happening? Why is it that it is not yet developed? And I think that arbitration doesn't simply come just like that. It follows business where there is business. So where there is no business between states, international business, it's unlikely that the arbitration business will also flow in that jurisdiction. So there is that contribution, that economic contribution where Africa has been lagging behind economically, it started to be open maybe about 20 years ago. So there is this significance factor that Africa seems to requires the intention. And this is what the trustee mentioned earlier in his initial speech. We just need intention. Otherwise, without intention, these other requirements, other factors to make Africa a safe seat will not happen, will not appear. We need to know that when we are talking of a seat in international arbitration, we are talking of another country. It's not only a single, a domestic practice. We are talking international arbitration. So there's so much that you young people have to do. And like how my colleague has just amended, you also wish you've come at the right time when these problems are visible, and you are better off than us. For us, we started in analog, and we're being challenged by technology. But for you, you are in the right place, in the right time, and you have mentors who will tell you what they went through, and you can just leverage on that. So I want also to thank you for this initiative, and I want to thank our trustee. Our trustee, by the way, Chikwendo, I owe you a drink. Honestly, I've never seen this trustee missing any African arbitration initiative. He's always there. And so why can't we make him a president of arbitration? African president. Not association. Yes, we have a president. So thank you very much, trustee. And Herman, thank you very much for what you're doing. Different chairs for groups. Thank you very much. We will always be there whenever you need us. I think that's what we have to give. Other than that, have a nice weekend. And until we meet next time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Isaac. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. This has been a great session. I believe that next time we'll have to have this over 2 days because there's so much to digest from each of the sessions. And I'm sure it will metamorphose into a whole conference of its own in the near future, where we'll all pack our bags and we'll even have sponsorship to just arrive in one beach somewhere in Africa and just have all these conversations.
Maybe
Lauren,
Yes.
Lauren, there's a saying in my culture, that nobody climbs an Iroko tree twice in a lifetime.
Okay.
So whenever I have opportunity of climbing Iroko tree, take advantage of Mr. Omoka SAN is here. If you're looking for sponsorship, just say directly to him. He will accept.
Yes, please. Thank you so much. I mean, the countries he was mentioning, we are now raising funds to even go to those places. So yes, we sure will send in applications. But thank you all so much. And I'd like to thank everybody for joining us on this webinar. I'll pass the mic over to Elizabeth or Charles to round up for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lorraine. And I would like to thank each and every single person who was able to connect through the webinar today. We are really, really delighted to have you on board. And to our speakers, thank you so much for sparing the time today to actually speak to us. I'm very certain that people have gained quite a lot from the various sessions that we've had. And just to note, SIAB Uganda chapter will be having an international arbitration conference on 13th and 14th November. So we are delighted to have each and every single one of you on those specific days and to continue engaging in the various conversations regarding international arbitration. Thank you once again, and we hope to have other webinars organized by the young member groups where we can be able to share our various insights on ADR. Thank you so much for your time.
Yes, and maybe as we wrap up, maybe what I can also just say is I want to say a very big thank you to Dr. Chikwedu Madumeri, the SIAB Africa trustee, for, of course, allowing to be part of this initiative, and also for, being here up to when we have got done. Thank you very much. I want to say thank you to the different panelists, panel 1, the SIAB heads, for all the collaboration that has made today a success. Panel 2, Mr. Godin Onwaka and Mr. Isaac Bizumuremi, your rich insights, given your experience, have really made the day a success. Of course, the number of things that have stood out, for example, value, merit, and of course, pursuit, which I think that's what we can go with. As young members, those are things we should make sure that we build our value, because with our value, even bad systems, they will always have merit. And the way to build the value is through pursuit. And of course, by pursuit means that in some instances, you have to pay the price. Lastly, I want to thank our chapters and branches, the different chapters and branches, because the YMGs are just special interest groups under these. So the very fact that the different YMG heads have been here means that the different chapters and branches have been here. So Ugandan chapter, for instance, that has been very generous with allowing us to use their Zoom for today's webinar, the different branches that enabled the push in terms of marketing the different material. That was very, very nice. And I hope that, in the future, we all can partake and, use these different, our different synergies to make sure that we can have many of these conferences and things like that. I also want to appeal to members of other branches or chapters that were part of this initiative. Probably in the future, we can have a much bigger collaboration. We can have many more branches and chapters across Africa joining. And probably, as Lorraine suggested, we could be somewhere at a beach somewhere in some African country, enjoying ourselves as we share insights on these things, ADR and arbitration related. With that said, I want to thank everyone who has been part of this, and I want to wish you all a lovely evening and a lovely weekend. Thank you, and thank you for being part of this.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.